Hey, sports fans, Larry Eater, RunBlogRun. It's Athletic Chat number 29. Stuart, we've survived that long. Isn't that amazing?
And
29 weeks.
And some people still listen to us.
It's scary. It's scary. Our first topic is Cherry Alexander, the longtime event director at UK Athletics, has announced that she's leaving. And people are very concerned about it. How do you stand on this?
Well, the official position is that it's all very amicable. That's what Joe Coates told the media. For me, there are questions. I mean, Cherry is such a brilliant administrator, vice president of European Athletics, the person who masterminded the 2017 World Championships in London, the 2018 World Indoor in Birmingham, the anniversary games, the Birmingham Diamond Leagues. The question is, why is there not a role for such a person in the new British athletics? Yeah. I mean, one theory is that the old guard are generally being replaced by new people, often from outside, not even athletics people. I mean, I think that probably one has to give Joe Coates a chance to do what she wants to do and judge after a bit. But it's strange, and I would just say that I wonder if British athletics will actually regret losing Cherry.
Yeah. It's. I've watched her involved in events since 2006, and I know she was involved in it, I guess, in the 90s too. And she's really honed her craft. And unless UK Athletics is getting out of the event business, which I don't believe they will, or perhaps they're going to freelance everything, and that's an approach to look at it. But something is going on that we're not privy to, and that's just it's just a little disappointing.
The
next thing we wanted to talk about was an Olympic update with where the vaccines are going right now. And I just saw a note that said that the entire time we're at the Olympics, we'll be wearing masks, which makes sense. Any thoughts? Anything you've been reading?
Well, I just feel that I have got confidence now that if you ask me, will I be going to the Olympics, I would have said it's now 60-40 yes.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you'd asked me a month ago, I'd have said it was probably 40-60.
Yeah.
I think the potential for having the vaccines is a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you're saying is, will the games be like they were in London 2012, like they were in Rio 2016? Probably not. I think the wearing of masks, a bit of social distancing, restricted contact with athletes, I think all of those are probably going to be part of the reality.
Yeah, I think you're right. Let's see what else we got going on. Oh, the Continental Tour was announced for 2021. I thought it was very interesting. Also, so was the Diamond League. And boy, meets have been moved around, you know. And
I mean, we start with two continentals, one in Tokyo, one in the Golden Spike in Ostrava. Then we go into two Diamond Leagues, Morocco and Qatar.
Yeah.
And then August we've got a series of July. In June we have a series of continentals in Jamaica, Hengelo in Netherlands, the Papua Nurmi in Finland. Before then, July we're back on Diamond League. So it's interesting how they're alternating. But of course, because the Olympics start on the 23rd of July, you have an awful lot of Continental and Diamond Leagues to get in early.
Yeah.
And I mean, already that's a question which has been asked about the anniversary games, which are just 17 days before the Olympics start. And if athletes are going to be in a holding camp and so on, is the anniversary games too late to get the number of British athletes you'd normally have at it? But, I think Olympic years are always hard because if you're trying to do the same number of Diamond Leagues and the new Continental Gold Tour, then you have less time and you're still trying to do a lot of events. So it's always going to be a compromise somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I talked to Tom Jordan last week about the pre, and his meet for the first time is going to be after the Olympics. The last time that happened was back in 1984, and I think he's 2 weeks after the Olympics, so he's pretty excited about that. He said that'll give him all kinds of interesting opportunities.
Yeah.
Let's see. Valencia Marathon is coming up. That's going to be on December 6th, and we'll post some information about that. Our friend Carlos Baronet from Track in the Sun has put some things up. And that's got a pretty impressive marathon, half marathon, and 10K field. So that should be fun. On this side of the pond, the most interesting news today was Mike Caporazzo, who is the COO of the New York Road Owners Club, has announced his retirement at the end of the year. There has been for the first year, this has been going on for 2 years, a group of some complaints were filed about everything from racial harassment to the questions on the work environment. And at first people thought that they were questionable at best. And then it seems that the board, the New York Road Owners, have taken it very seriously. And Michael will be leaving on the 31st. They're looking for somebody new. It's a pretty big deal. Michael originally went in when Mary Wittenberg left, and he was with Peter Chacha. And then Peter Chacha left, and many thought that Peter was kind of pushed out by Mr. Caporazzo. And now Mr. Caporazzo is leaving. So it's going to be interesting to see who they bring in and how the work environment changes at the New York Road Owners Club. It had went from all these volunteers under Fred LeBeau to this highly professional organization. They have this beautiful building and, I think a couple hundred employees. So they put on over 50 races. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that goes. Anything out of the land of the London Marathon?
Nothing that I've heard. I mean, I think that they're sensibly going for a late date in the year in the hope that it can be back to normal.
Yeah, it looks like. Good.
No, I was just going to say, I think the way things are in Britain at the moment, if they had gone for their traditional April date, it would have been the same as this year. Yeah.
Now I think we're going to, even with the vaccines coming, it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
And people, we're hearing we may have some to key people like the medical professionals the end of December. But we'll just have to wait and see how things are going to go.
See, the biggest development here is that for Premier League soccer, as from this week, depending on what part of the country you're in, i.e. because we're in tiers 1, 2, and 3, according to how severe COVID is, you can have either 1,000, 2,000, or 3,000 spectators at soccer for the first time. Now, I mean, a lot of people say this doesn't make sense because if you're saying that you have a stadium that holds 15,000 and you're allowed to have 3,000 in it, whereas someone like Manchester United, whose stadium holds 75,000, could also only have 2,000 or 3,000 in it. Because surely with a large stadium, you can social distance people far more. And again, they're saying to people, we want you to drive. to the stadium and not come in public transport, so that you can be just one or two people to a car, rather than being on the buses and trains as people would normally do. So again, they're as worried about getting people there as getting people, actually keeping them safe in the stadium. And I mean, I think the reason that I decided not to go to the London Marathon this year was more the getting there than the being there.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt if I had to cross London in a train, you just don't know who you're going to be exposed to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, right now, how do you get out? Do you get out for a walk each day?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And you're doing
go on.
You're doing your shopping online?
Do shopping online. My walking soccer is restarting this week, so I'll do that. But I mean, currently we cannot visit anyone else's home, and no one can visit our home.
Okay.
Christmas, they're lifting the restrictions, but people, the medical people are worried about that, because for 5 days you can have people from 3 households meeting together.
Wow.
But then the medical people say we'll probably pay for that by having another spike in January.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it seems that the only ways they know how to control it right now are keeping us as isolated as you can. And where I was in California, in Santa Clara County, which has literally half the population of the state of Wisconsin, but an area 1/10 the size, they just put up a note today that if you drive more than 150 miles, you've got to quarantine outside of the county. You've got to quarantine yourself for 14 days. And so it's getting scary, and I think it will get more difficult before Christmas hits. So I'm just preparing myself to do my ordering online, you know.
Sure, but I mean, when in March, our chief medical officer said if we could keep deaths in the UK below 20,000, we'll have done well. You know, I laughed at that and thought, don't be ridiculous. And we're going to hit 60,000 this week.
Yeah, we're 266,000 today. And it's been interesting. And I just did a piece on Justin Legatt, one of our writers, went to a half marathon 2 hours from I-10 yesterday. And he sent me pictures, and all the people were in line with their mask on as they're getting up to the starting line, and they had to have their masks right after the race. And now Kenya has done a really good job in keeping control of the coronavirus. As has Africa, and they think that much of it is because of their experience with the terrible Ebola from years ago. So, and I just, you know, again, over here, it's just craziness. There are people who just don't buy it, and I just don't understand. But I try to empathize. I just don't want to get sick, and I don't want to get anybody sick. So that's kind of where we're at.
Absolutely, yeah.
I put on here athletes we admire. Anybody that comes to mind, by the way?
Oh, how long have you got? I get so many athletes I admire.
Okay, I want 3 athletes that you admire.
Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price.
Okay.
Because my times of going to major events just coincide with her career. I mean, the first major event I went to was the 2008 Olympics, where she surprised everyone and surprised herself by winning the 100 meters. Then I saw her again in London. And then, of course, she had her son, Zion, who was born actually during the London 2017 World Championships. And then she came back and won in the World Championship in Doha. And I tell you, if the 2020 Olympics had taken place, I would love to know who might have beaten her, because I can't think of anyone.
Yeah.
Next year, she'll be a year older, but if she was sitting next to me, she would say, I will be a year more experienced.
Yeah.
And because she says that she thinks that what she loses in age, she gains in experience. And, you know, somebody who does her media with such enthusiasm. Who will answer the same question 16 times for 16 different people because she recognizes that that is part of her obligation.
Yeah, yeah.
And somebody who turns up with a different color of hair at every major event.
Yes.
Remember, we posted something on that last time about.
That was fun.
Yeah. So a lovely person, an incredibly talented athlete, and yeah. So I'll start with her.
Okay. I will start with, let's see. I had a really wonderful surprise in interviewing Galen Rupp last week. And I've known Galen since he was 16 years old. He was running the AAU 5000, where he took second place. And his high school coach, a guy named David Frank, had called me at home in San Jose and said, Larry, you got to come and see this guy. And I did, and I was impressed. I thought he looked pretty good. I didn't think he was world-beating at the time. The next year, when I watched him win the fall, when he won the Nike Border Clash, I thought he was tremendous. And I just, I'll tell you that 10,000 meters in London in 2012 with him and Mo was just phenomenal. And they both ran so well. And I just remember looking at Galen and going with about 200 to go, you know what? He's in it. He could medal. And then he made that great move. And it was fantastic to see both of them do so well. Every time I've interviewed Galen, it's been a lot of fun. He's very thoughtful. He answers his questions. But what was interesting was he knew that the interview with me would be very relaxed. And we talked for about 40 minutes. And he went on for 5 to 8 minutes on several topics that he was very enthusiastic about. And you see a different part of him. He's just a little more relaxed. Some people don't like being up in front of the group, and some people hate social media. Galen's done a nice job doing some of these Zoom interviews, and he did a piece with David Hunter, our senior editor from the Midwest. And so I think that Galen will be the one that I'll start with. It's been nice to see him develop. I think he gets a lot of I think he's kind of hazed a little bit, and people interpret his thoughtfulness as being arrogance, and it's not. Some people just don't like being in front of crowds. They like to let their feet do the walking, but I think Galen does a little bit more than that. So who's your next?
Christian Taylor.
Okay.
I first met Christian at the World Indoors 2012 in Istanbul. And I did my first interview with him there, and I've spoken to him loads of times since. I was privileged to see him win and retain his Olympic title, world titles. But just one little incident I will pick up. I had asked him if he would do a quick interview with me in Monaco 2019. And he did this presser. He spoke to all sorts of people. And then his agent came along and said, right, Christian, you have to go. There's stuff we have to do. And Christian said to his agent, no, I've got to talk to Stuart first because I promised him I would do it.
Wow.
And I just thought that was just the integrity of saying, I promised I'd do it and I'm going to do it. And of course, Christian has spent most of the last year to the point where he said he was actually not sleeping very well. He spent most of this year working on representing athletes with the new association.
No.
Trying to help a lot of athletes, because it's probably something which he doesn't need a lot, with the contract he's got and the fame that he's got, but just a concern to help people slightly down the pecking order.
I think Christian is one of those classy people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
My next would be Noah Lyles. I've only known Noah for a short time, but his enthusiasm for interviews, and he knows how to do social media. He enjoys competing. He understands the idea that an athlete is an entertainer. And every time we have an interview, it's just a blast. And I learn new things about him. He's got a great sense of humor. He and his brother Josephus just started a nonprofit where they're going to try to help some kids in crisis. So he's putting things back in. He wasn't afraid to get involved in the political discussions of the last 6 or 8 months. And I appreciate that too, because our politics over here is terribly balkanized. And some people wonder how the democracy continue to go on. But with people like Noah, who are very thoughtful and can say what they say, but can also be respectful, I think that's really cool. And I love watching him run. He's a true talent. Got another idea, sir?
Yes. Well, I think I need one British one in my three, and I'm going to go for Ailey. I'm going to go for Ailey Doyle. Now, I first saw Ailey run at the Commonwealth Games in 2010 when she was a school teacher.
Wow.
Trying to see whether she was good enough to become professional, and she took a big decision to move from her native Scotland down to Bath in the south of England to work with Malcolm Arnold, a legendary English coach who was responsible for Colin Jackson breaking the world record and so on.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay.
And so she moved down, and she's never been absolutely top world class, but one of those people who always gives a good race. Somebody who will typically make the Olympic and World Championship final. Someone who in European and Commonwealth will always be in the medals. I mean, like she's taken silver medals, I think, at the last 2 or 3 Commonwealths, and she's been European champion. And a serial relay medalist in 4x400. And I mean, I think she would be too modest to say this. I think the reason that Britain came fourth in the women's 4x4 in Doha was because Ailey was still on her maternity leave. Because if she had run the first leg, we would not have been behind the way we were, and those in front would have been able to hold the position. And the other thing about her is, again, she's just such a lovely person. Again, always willing to talk, and I mean, even during her, I was going to say sabbatical, during her maternity leave, I have called her from time to time, and we've just had a nice conversation. And she posted a wonderful thing on social media of her wheeling her son in the pram when he was a few months old around a track, and she posted, "Son, this is the first bend. Mummy's usually feeling all right here. I won't tell you about the home straight until you're a bit older."
That's good. I like that very, very much.
Yeah. And she got on so well with her coach that she married him. Not Malcolm, but Brian.
Oh, cool.
Coached by her husband, Brian.
The next one that I would add in is Molly Huddle. Molly, I've watched run over here since she was about 17. She had the best 2-mile time for American girls in high school, and she's developed into a very fine distance runner, taking 6th in the Olympics and 4th in a world championships. She has the American record at the 10,000. She's got a great sense of humor. One time she was teasing me about dating and told me that I should go to a website called sugardaddy.com. And I didn't even know anything like that existed. And there actually apparently is that. And it's, but she said it and she looked for the reaction. And that was in about 2011. So I always knew she could throw zingers out. But we just did an interview, and it's really fun learning about how people develop and how the challenges they've had and a little bit about what their other parts of their lives are. And, I continue to say this, you and I have talked about this before, that 99.9% of the athletes are so uplifting and so thankful for their opportunities and recognize their opportunities. And they also know that their gifts are not just theirs, whether they talk about their religious beliefs, whether they talk about humanistic beliefs. The big thing is that we've got people who are pretty well developed, for someone who's focusing on, a 400-meter hurdle race. But all right, you've got one more to go. So give me one more athlete.
I have got 3 written down, so I've got to pick up one. No, it's all right. I will go for Laura Muir.
Okay, why Laura?
Because she combines being a really good athlete with being a really nice person. Mm-hmm. I did an interview with her, and she was just great. And of course, she's only just become a full-time athlete because she was doing her studies to become, we call it a vet. Did you use the word vet or a veterinary surgeon?
Sure, yeah.
So, she was doing a pretty demanding job, fitting in training whenever, she didn't have classes at university. We don't have sports scholarships or anything like that. So if she was in a placement in a veterinary hospital, she was sort of running first thing in the morning or in the evening when she had finished her placements. Because we have so few top athletes, an awful lot of pressure is put on people.
Sure.
And I just think she coped with that pressure really well.
Yeah.
And she was injured before Doha, and finished up running 3:55 and not getting a medal, which is just crazy.
That was amazing to me. Yeah.
Yeah. But she just said, she no complaints. How can you complain when you run a big PR, and particularly when you've missed training? And I love the way she's taken Gemma Ricci under her wing.
Yeah.
And they do seem to be as good friends as it appears.
Yeah, I don't think it's BS at all. I think you're completely correct.
Yeah, and just even though that Laura actually put on social media once, just come back from a 3-week training camp with Gemma. So I called her last we could meet for coffee. So yeah, and I just think she is. To me, one of my great memories of Laura was a time where she won the European indoor title in Belgrade, and she wanted to have, we call it a lap of honor, to go around the track after the race was over, waving to the crowd and so on. And an officious steward said that she couldn't do it.
Wow.
But Laura sidestepped her and went. And she said afterwards, I knew that if I got past her, she wouldn't catch me.
Well, there's a couple other athletes. I'm going to probably throw another one to you in a bit too. I'm going to go back a way. One of the athletes that I've enjoyed over the last 4 decades has been Bill Rogers. I met Bill at the top of his form. When he was the greatest marathoner in the world at the time. He was ranked in 1977, 78, 79, and always had a sense of humor, stayed relaxed, very goofy, always remembered your name. And as he became a masters athlete, he was still that way, and he would ask us questions, and he always wanted to learn things. And he's a keen observer of the sport. In a lot of ways, Bill Rogers is to American road running what Jack Nicklaus is to golf. And there was a period in the 90s where the only 2 people that race directors would bring in that were American were Bill Rogers and Frank Shorter, because that's what the American public knew, because there was no distance runners at the time doing that well, and instead of investing in the distance runners, they continued to work with these guys. And I think it's interesting to see how it's not an act for a lot of these people. For Bill, anytime you see him, I've watched him stand there and sign autographs and talk to people. And that's what Frank Shorter did with me in 1974. And I think that's why I fell in love with the sport. He had just, it was 2 weeks before he won Fukuoka Marathon, and he was running the AAU cross country. And I climbed under a fence to see him. And he was there in tie-dyed long underwear and a Colorado University top. And there was 4 of us, and we didn't know. And he looked at us, and he goes, "Hey, guys, I like your sweats." And he signed an autograph for us, and we thought he was wonderful. But there's that genuineness, and that interaction, I think, that means something pretty special. Okay, so you just did Laura Muir, and you had 2 more to go. So I want you to give me both of those.
Well, I'll throw in one from going back a bit, Christina Horogoo.
Oh, yeah.
Olympic champion 2008, world champion twice. And she's an athlete I've got to know quite well. And the way she ran her race was always fascinating, because if you watch back her 2008 Olympic win in the 400, at the halfway stage, she is so far behind Sanya Richards that there's no way back for her. But she just keeps coming and coming and coming and coming. And she's judged it to perfection.
Yeah.
And she wins. Similarly, in 2003 in Moscow, where she wins by a hundredth of a second from Amantal Moncho. And again, that she's just done it. And she got the silver in London. And of course, she's not just from London, she's actually from Stratford. She said that when she went to a reception in the hotel next to the stadium, looked out the window, she could see her mom's house. It's that close.
Wow.
And she did the same exactly in that final. She got a long way behind. Originally, I think it was Dee Trotter who was leading, and then Sanya came through. But it looked as if, had that race been 405 meters, Christine might have won it.
Wow.
But when I talked to her afterwards, Christine said, "Yeah, I'm disappointed, but it's nice that Sanya won, because Sanya's been such a great athlete. It would have been a shame if she'd finished her career without winning the Olympics." Wow. I just thought, what a generous thing to say about a rival in those situations.
Yeah, I had 2 conversations with Christine, and I always found her really straightforward. We talked about her races. I loved her 2008, but I really loved what she did in Osaka in 2007. That was phenomenal. But again, another class athlete. The other one that I want to bring up is Valerie Adams. And
Yes.
my dream is to have a one-on-one interview with Valerie someday. And I'm going to do word association with her and a bunch of stuff because she is one of the quickest thinking people I have ever seen. And she is an absolute joy to interview. You know, one of the all-time best group interviews was her and Greg Rutherford and Rudisha David at, I think it was Birmingham. It's got to be 10 years now, Stuart, back. And she was hysterical. I mean, her and Greg, it was like they were, you know, Grace and Allen, and they just, are George Burns and Gracie Allen, and it just, they could play off each other. She understands the irony of being in the shot and dealing with athletes who've cheated against her. She just did a piece on having children, series that was so thoughtful and so emotional and so she wanted young women to read it, so we got it out everywhere for her, and totally impressed with the way she comports herself. I love watching her compete. She totally into it, and again, she's not one of just the good ones. She's one of the great ones.
Yes. And I mean, as you say, exactly my impression. When I think of her, I think of some of the pressers that she does, and where really it's a comedy show, and she's there to have fun. Yeah. And if you ask her a stupid question, you'll get a stupid answer.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, she doesn't suffer fools. Do you have one more athlete you could add in?
Well, I was going to say Faith Kipyegon.
Okay.
Again, I just enjoyed getting to know her, seeing her win in the Rio Olympics, seeing her win in London 2017, seeing her come back after having a daughter in Doha, running a national record and coming second, and then going out in the 800 and the 1000 when all the clever people like you and me said, nah, she'll never do much there. 15's her distance, and then she goes out and breaks records in both of them.
Yeah.
What do we know, eh?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Pretty darn impressive. What do you, let me just have a couple other things here now, too. We've talked about where the Continental Tour, okay, we're down to 5 whole minutes, so you'll be able to get some dinner or watch some good television tonight, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, do you watch the Graham Norton show?
Sometimes.
Okay, I get it in clips over here. My mother loved it, and so when I would travel back from Europe, she and I would sit up and watch it for hours because, you know, they could do the replays and stuff like that. Now they do all the little clips for us, which crack me up. But the one other one I wanted to talk about real quick was Usain Bolt. And Usain was always fun, but a lot of times he was under pressure. But there was a night in 2011, I was in Stockholm, and he spent a good 60 to 70 minutes in the chilly air in Stockholm in the evening, talking to kids and signing autographs. There's about 20 kids hanging out with him in the mix zone. And he was just laughing and having fun with them. And there was nobody taking pictures. It was all very relaxed. And I always liked that with him, you know. And later that night, we were in the hotel lobby, and one of my friends wanted to meet him, and he came over and took a picture with her. And he was very gracious, always charming, and he was good for the sport, you know. He was a lot of fun. So we're down to a couple minutes now, my friend. Any deep thoughts you want to end up with today?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I just think we're all hoping that next year eventually becomes normal. Probably not before Easter. But I'm sort of hoping that I might, by the month of May, be getting to a Diamond League.
Yeah,
that's my hope for next year.
All right. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed. I would like that too. Please stay safe, my friend. And next week will be Athletics Chat 30. This is Athletics Chat
30.
29.
Yeah.
Larry Eder with RunBlogRun. You've been with Stuart tonight with Athletics Chat. Thank you. Have a safe week. Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Hey, sports fans, Larry Eder, RunBlogRun. This is Athletics Chat 29, and this is the epilogue, or as you guys know it affectionately, Larry's monologue. You know the deal, Stuart, Weir, and I. Stuart's in lovely Oxford, England, and Larry is, of course, in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, and we spend 40 minutes once a week solving many of the world's mysteries and problems in athletics. I'm not sure if we solve them. I think we sometimes maybe even confuse them, or add a little confusion. But I've digressed. So, our first topic, Cherry Alexander. Cherry has been involved with British athletics for 30 years, and she's been on the event side. And she was responsible for the 2017 London World Champs, the 2018 Birmingham World Indoor Champs. She did an awesome job. In the recent purges that have happened in British athletics, one of the things that befuddles me the most is why one would take someone who is so well liked, so well acclaimed, and remove her. And while Cherry's a nice person and has said that she has resigned and blah, 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 the way these things happen is you get pressure put on you, and I know from experience, and you decide what your next step is, where you're going to pursue other interests or whatever the press release will be. But this looks like a pretty typical one here, and it's most unfortunate because Cherry is a very talented person. I, for one, and Stuart supported it, sure hope that she gets, if she decides to work again, I think she'll be picked up by a group quickly, and I'd be more than happy to write a recommendation. Cherry Alexander is a class act. And there's been a few things that British Athletics is doing. And again, I respect Joe Coates for trying to institute change, but sometimes you got to know what things to change and what things not to. That, to me, is a sign of exceptional management. I'm keeping the door open on Joe Coates. I think she's done some really good things. It's just that I disagree with her on a few things, and that's fine. The world, we can disagree. Someday she and I will have a chat, perhaps. The next thing we talked about is the Olympics. Stuart's feeling about 60-40 right now with the vaccines that we're going to have a 2021 Olympics. We also think that we also just heard that we're going to be wearing masks everywhere. There'll be a limited number of fans, obviously. They'll manage the athletes, and we're just not going to be going anywhere, and there's not going to be any big parties, which there always is at an Olympics. So it's going to be kind of strange. But if the Olympics can happen and the world needs that, that would be great. The only way I'm going is if I get a vaccine. I just can't even test it any other way. Spoke a couple minutes about the Valencia Marathon, which will happen on December 6th. There's a 10K and a half marathon. All three have stellar fields, and Valencia knows how to put stuff together. So I'm looking forward to watching that this weekend. The big news today was Michael Caporazzo, the COO of the New York Roadrunners Club. He's announced that he will be leaving the Roadrunners Club at the end of the year. It comes as, unfortunately, no surprise. Over the last 18 months, it started with innuendo in social media, and many people thought it was kind of bogus. But apparently that within the organization, within the confines of the walls, the New York Roadrunners Club, that the working conditions may not be as good as they should be. And there was a couple things about questions about how various ethnic groups were treated. And unfortunately, much of it was innuendo. But apparently the New York Roadrunners Club board met, and Michael will be gone at the end of the year. I think Michael's done some great things. I think this is most unfortunate. But we will see. I'm very curious to see who's in charge of the New York Roadrunners Club in the future. we spent some time talking about the top athletes we liked. You'll have to listen in on that and watch that. And we talked about the Continental Tour and in 2021 and how that's supposed to play out. It's starting early in May. We're going to keep our fingers crossed and see if we can go. I hope you enjoyed this epilogue with Larry Eder on Athletics Chat 29. If you like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you love us on the YouTube. This is Larry Eder. Stay safe. Signing out.